Living alone does not magically make you freer, it makes you more visible to your own habits. That is where the performance falls apart. That is where there is no one left to blame if you get up with no direction, if your body feels heavy, if your mind starts in chaos. And if your home looks like the exact reflection of the disorder you carry inside. Health is not lost all at once, it is abandoned in small mornings badly lived. In clumsy decisions you repeat half asleep while telling yourself that tomorrow you are really going to start for real. And no, you do not need a perfect life or some enlightened guru routine. You need to stop sabotaging the first hours of your day as if your well-being were negotiable. Stay with me. Gabriel here. Welcome to the Stoic Garden. Today we are going to walk through 7 morning habits that can make you stronger, clearer and healthier than a lot of people who brag about taking care of themselves but are falling apart inside. If you truly understand them and apply them with discipline, you will finish this video with a simple structure to organize your morning, protect your energy, and turn your solitude into a real advantage. Let us begin. 1. Get up at the same time and make your bed to start with order and control. It sounds like some silly household thing, almost like grandmotherly advice that some people hear with that cheap look of superiority people now use to dismiss anything simple. But it is not. The time you get up and the first action you take when you open your eyes say much more about your life than you would like to admit. Because the day does not begin when you answer messages, or when you drink coffee, or when you remember your problems. The day begins at the exact moment you decide whether you are going to govern yourself or once again let inertia drag you around like a sack with no will of its own. Most people live as if every morning were an accident. One day they get up early, the next they lie there turning over in bed, the next they check their phone before they have even fully opened their eyes, and then they wonder why they live tired, anxious, and with the feeling that they have no control over anything. Well, because they do not have control over anything, or rather, they have handed over control of the small things, which is exactly where control of the big things is won or lost. Discipline is not born in heroic decisions. It is born when the alarm goes off and you stop negotiating with yourself like some corrupt politician buying 5 more minutes of misery. Getting up at the same time is not empty rigidity. It is teaching your body that there is a rhythm, a structure, a clear signal that the day has begun. The body loves order, even if the spoiled part of you hates it. When you wake up at different times, when today you rise early and tomorrow you crawl back to life at noon, you are not being free. You are throwing off your internal clock, your energy, your mood, and even your mental clarity. Then come those days when you feel foggy, slow, and unwilling to do anything, and you act as if the universe has punished you. No, my friend. Most likely you are just harvesting your own improvisation. And then there is the bed. That bed many people leave in complete disarray because they think it does not matter. Of course it does not matter, just like dirty dishes, clothes thrown around, and broken promises do not matter. It is always the same story. The person who does not respect the small things ends up living crushed by the big ones. Making your bed does not change your life by magic, but it does change something decisive. It forces you to carry out a simple, concrete, orderly action the moment you wake up. You are telling your mind that the day is not going to run itself, that you have already stepped onto the scene, and that you did not come here to drag yourself through it. There is something deeply powerful about beginning the day by correcting your immediate surroundings. An unmade bed is a visual message of neglect. A made bed is a quiet declaration of presence. And no, this is not about impressing anyone. You live alone, which is exactly why it matters more. When no one is watching, your truth shows up. Are you the kind of person who needs an audience to behave with dignity? Or are you someone who keeps order even without applause, even without visitors, even when no one is going to congratulate you for folding a blanket? That is where character is really measured, not in the pretty quotes you post when you are feeling philosophical. Marcus Aurelius, who was not exactly a productivity influencer, but an emperor forced to govern himself inwardly while governing an empire outwardly, left behind a brutal idea about this. He said that when you rise in the morning, you should remind yourself that you are meant to do the work of a human being and not complain about it. What an elegant way to knock the teeth out of laziness. It is not about feeling like it. It is about obeying your rational nature before the soft body starts inventing excuses. Getting up at a fixed time and making your bed is a humble but very serious way of honoring that truth. There is also an effect many people underestimate. When you keep your word to yourself in the first 5 minutes of the day, you no longer begin from guilt. You begin from a small victory. And an early victory, however small, organizes the attitude with which you face everything else. You dress differently, walk differently, think differently. On the other hand, when the first thing you do is fail yourself, stay in bed longer than you said you would, stare at your phone like an addict looking for a fix, and drag yourself out of bed with the face of defeat, then you have already entered the day crooked. You have already handed the first battle to the weakest part of yourself. So stop treating your mornings as if they were a consequence-free zone. What you do when you wake up is not a detail, it is a verdict. Get up at the same time. Make your bed. Put that small territory in order before stepping out to fight with the rest of the world, because someone who cannot govern 2 square yards of a bedroom is unlikely to govern their energy, their health, or their life. And when that basic order becomes a habit, then yes, you are no longer just surviving your mornings. You are beginning to build real authority over yourself. 2. Drink water when you wake up and get natural light to activate your body and your mood. Here we step into one of those truths so simple that people dismiss it for that very reason. They wake up, grab their phone, then coffee, then something sugary, and leave water for later, as if their body were an immortal machine that could start dry and never send them the bill. No, you are not a war machine or some epic movie character. You are a real body that has spent hours without drinking, without light, without movement, and it needs clear signals to come out of its nighttime state without entering the day like a bad-tempered zombie. When you open your eyes, your body is coming out of a long pause. It has been breathing for hours, using resources, losing fluids, and it still does not fully understand whether the day has begun or whether you are still trapped in that clumsy fog of half-broken sleep. A glass of water when you wake up is not some wellness fad for people obsessed with health. It is a basic way of giving the body what it needs to start moving with dignity. And yes, it sounds far too simple to be important, but that is exactly the problem. Many people prefer complex rituals because they love feeling sophisticated while ignoring the basics. Water first thing in the morning clears you out, reactivates you, turns things on. It does not perform miracles, but it does send a useful and concrete signal. The body understands that the day has begun, and you stop wandering around the house like a confused ghost, looking for salvation in caffeine. Coffee can come later, relax. No one is taking it away from you. But starting with water is starting with respect. It is like telling your body, first I take care of you, then I ask something from you. And that difference matters more than it seems, because many people want performance without care, focus without a foundation, energy without habits. Brilliant, of course. Like wanting a harvest from soil you do not even water. And then there is natural light, that free resource the modern world decided to replace with white ceilings, glowing screens, and closed blinds. You do not go outside enough, you get less light than you should, and then you wonder why your mood is low and sleep feels like an enemy. Morning light is not decoration, it is biological information. It tells your brain that it is time to really wake up, to adjust your rhythms, to come out of physical and mental dimness. It is enough to open the window, step outside for a few minutes, let the day touch your face instead of receiving your first light from a dirty screen. Do you realize how absurd this is? There are people who live alone, who have silence, who have margin, who have the perfect opportunity to build a strong morning, and yet they still begin by staring at notifications in a dark cave as if the digital world were more real than the sun. Then they say they feel drained. Of course they do. If the first thing your mind receives is noise, and the first thing you deny your body is water and light, you're not starting the day, you are contaminating it. And then you want concentration, good humor, and clean energy. Yes, of course, like someone throwing sand into the engine and getting offended because the car will not run. Seneca, who understood better than many modern people the value of not wasting life on repeated foolishness, warned that it is not that we have too little time, but that we waste much of what has been given to us. And that applies here too. The morning is golden time, but not only for productivity. It is golden because that is when you decide how you are going to inhabit your body and mind for the hours ahead. If you waste that beginning, you spend the rest of the day trying to correct a disorder you never should have created. A glass of water and a few minutes of light seem like small things until you understand that small things repeated organize the big ones. Natural light also has a moral effect, strange as that may sound. It pulls you out of mental confinement. It reminds you that there is a world larger than your nighttime thoughts, larger than your worries, larger than that inflated anxiety that seems enormous first thing in the morning. When you expose yourself to the day, even for a few minutes, something resets. Yes, the body activates, but your perception also gets reordered. You are no longer completely trapped inside your head. You come back to the real world, and for someone who lives alone, that matters enormously, because if you do not take care of that transition from night to day, you end up living locked inside your own loops. You do not need to turn this into a spectacle. There is no need to pose like a guru, buy ridiculous gadgets, or talk about hydration in a mystical tone. Drink water as soon as you wake up. Get natural light. Do it every day until your body stops arguing with it and your mind stops seeing it as optional. Because health is not always built through impressive feats. Sometimes it is built by stopping the foolish behavior from the very first minute. And when you master something this basic, you discover that your morning no longer begins in fog but in presence. That changes much more than people think. 3. Move for 10 minutes and wake up your joints, balance and circulation. Here, a lot of people give themselves away. They say they want to be healthy, that they want to feel light, strong, awake, but in practice they expect to go from total stillness to full clarity without any worthy transition. They get up stiff, drag their body around the house, sit down, stare at a screen, drink something, and wait for energy to appear out of thin air. That is not how it works. The body is not a switch. It is more like a fire that needs to be lit intelligently. If you treat it like stone, it will respond like stone. Moving for 10 minutes when you wake up is not training for a medal or pretending to be an elite athlete before breakfast. It is reminding your body that it is alive, that it has joints to use, muscles to activate, balance to sharpen, and blood to get flowing with intention. 10 minutes. What an unbearable demand, right? Almost a modern tragedy. The truth is, you do not skip it because you cannot. Many times you skip it because you have gotten used to obeying laziness as if it were a wise voice, when in reality it is usually just a comfortable tyrant with terrible inner publicity. What happens when you move early is simple and powerful. The body comes out of its lethargy, the joints wake up, the back stops complaining like a grumpy old man, the breath opens up, and the mind begins to understand that the day is not going to be a blurry continuation of bed. That small activation changes the tone of everything. You walk differently, you hold yourself differently, you even think differently. Because it is not the same to start the morning as a tense, sleepy block as it is to enter the day with the feeling that you have taken possession of your own body again. And there is no need to make it complicated. Stretch a little, move your shoulders, neck, hips, knees and ankles, walk around the house, do a few gentle squats, sway a bit, open the chest, wake up the spine. Nothing spectacular, nothing worthy of applause. That is exactly why it works, because it is sustainable, because it does not depend on Tuesday enthusiasm or Sunday regret. It depends on something better. Understanding that a body neglected in the morning sends you the bill for the rest of the day. Or did you really think you could live hunched, stiff, sedentary, and then demand vitality as if it were an automatic right? There are people who live alone, and even with the perfect setting to listen to themselves and care for themselves, treat themselves like a crumbling office building. They begin the day without moving a single part of their body and then complain about heaviness, pain, clumsiness, and bad moods. Of course, the body speaks, and when you do not listen early, it interrupts later. First it whispers with stiffness, then it protests with fatigue, then it punishes you with sluggishness, aches, and a kind of slowness that steals your presence. The sad part is that many people interpret that as inevitable aging, when sometimes it is just simple, methodical neglect, repeated morning after morning with almost admirable consistency. Musonius Rufus, who was not some sofa poet but a severe teacher of self-discipline, left behind an idea that fits perfectly here. He held that anyone who cannot govern their simplest appetites will struggle to sustain higher decisions. And moving your body when you wake up falls exactly into that category. You are not fighting some epic tragedy. You are fighting the part of yourself that always wants comfort first and dignity later. The problem is that when you choose comfort first again and again, you end up losing both. you are not truly comfortable, and you do not feel dignified either. Those 10 minutes also have something almost moral about them. They pull you out of passivity. They make you a participant in your own life instead of a sleepy spectator. And that matters a great deal when you live alone, because solitude can push you toward two very different things. Either you refine yourself, or you abandon yourself. Either you use the silence to rebuild yourself, or you turn it into a swamp, where every day looks too much like the one before. Moving in the morning is a concrete way of choosing the first path. It is telling your body and mind that this is not a place for elegantly decaying. This is a place for living with presence. And then there is balance, which almost no one values until they lose it. Having balance is not just about not falling. It is stability, coordination, connection, fine control of the body. It is walking with confidence, bending down without fear, turning without clumsiness, holding yourself well in the space you inhabit. When you wake up those capacities early, you also wake up a deeper sense of control. Your body stops feeling like an object you drag around and starts feeling again like a tool that accompanies you. And that changes your relationship with yourself in a quiet but very real way. You do not need a perfect routine. You need to stop acting as if 10 minutes of mobility were some exotic luxury reserved for enlightened people. Move as soon as you wake up. Loosen up, activate, get your circulation going, wake yourself up. Do it even when you do not feel like it. Especially when you do not feel like it, because that is where the habit is really forged. And when you sustain it, you discover something important. The morning no longer finds you stiff and half switched on. It finds you present, looser, more alert, and far less willing to live inside a body that seems to have surrendered before the day even begins. 4. Breathe in silence and train your mind before stepping into the noise of the day. This point separates those who live the day from their center, from those who live it hijacked by every stimulus. Because one thing is waking up, and something very different is waking yourself up. A lot of people open their eyes, but they do not gather themselves, they do not steady themselves, they do not observe themselves. They just throw themselves headfirst into the noise like someone leaving the house with their shirt buttoned wrong and still trying to pass for polished. Then come the irritation, the rush, the distraction, the scattered thinking. And of course they act surprised, as if an untrained mind were going to behave nobly by some miracle. Breathing in silence for a few minutes before entering the world is not some spiritual pose or wellness performance to make you feel superior. It is mental hygiene. That simple. It is giving yourself a margin between the confused nothingness of sleep and the invasion of the day. Because in that margin, you decide whether you are going to react to everything like a faulty alarm system, or whether you are going to hold on to a little inner command before exposing yourself to noise, information, demands, other people's anxiety, and your own impulses. Whoever does not create that space ends up living in second response, always late, always dragged along. Breath, when used well, does something most people forget. It brings you back to your body, pulls you out of anticipatory chaos, and lowers the mental trembling that is sometimes already active before anything has even happened. And silence finishes the job. Because in silence you see more clearly what is living inside you. You see whether you woke up uneasy, resentful, tired, scattered, sad, or anxious. And that is worth gold. Not to dramatize it, but so you do not obey it blindly. An emotion detected in time loses part of its power. An emotion ignored usually runs you exactly as it pleases, and then convinces you that this is just who you are. This is not about emptying your mind, that absurd fantasy that drives half the world crazy. It is about observing it and training it. Sitting for a few minutes, breathing calmly, noticing what thoughts arise, not running after them like a dog chasing a motorcycle, and choosing the attitude with which you are going to enter the day. That choice does not eliminate problems, but it completely changes the way you live inside them. Is it not curious that so many people prepare their clothes, their coffee, and even their task list, but never prepare the mind with which they are going to face all of it? Then they complain about feeling overwhelmed. What an unfathomable mystery. Seneca, who understood the value of inner sobriety far better than this hysterical age does, left a beautiful line about silence. He said that we often regret having spoken, but rarely regret having kept silent with prudence. And that is the key. I am not talking about the empty silence of someone shutting down, but the intelligent silence of someone putting themselves in order before stepping out into the world. That small morning retreat does not take strength away from you, it gives it back. It lets you enter the day less reactive, less vulnerable to any fool carrying bad energy, and less willing to turn every inconvenience into a personal tragedy. Breathing with awareness also breaks a pretty ugly modern habit, the need to begin the day overstimulated. Music, notifications, videos, voices, news, messages, other people's opinions, noise everywhere. As if your mind were some food court where anyone is allowed to walk in and start shouting. No. Before letting the world in, you should meet yourself. Before listening to everyone else, you should listen to what kind of inner state you are bringing into today. Because if you do not do that, you go out into the world or into your obligations as a pile of badly organized impulses. And then, of course, you say the day consumed you. Sometimes it was not the day that consumed you. It was your own lack of preparation. Epictetus, the freed slave who taught whole generations how to govern the only thing that truly belongs to them, said it in a brutally useful way. Before reacting, examine the impression that has arrived in your mind and ask yourself whether it deserves your assent. Look at the precision of that. Not every thought deserves obedience. Not every emotion deserves the wheel. Not every worry deserves to become your agenda. Breathing in silence at the beginning of the morning is exactly that. Examining before consenting, looking before surrendering, giving yourself 1 second of dignity before letting the day come in like a stampede. And there is something deeply protective about this habit when you live alone, because solitude can fill up with clarity or with inner noise. If you do not train your mind, the quiet house becomes an echo chamber for worries, memories, comparisons, and imagined scenarios. But if you learn to sit, breathe, and observe, that same silence becomes both refuge and workshop. You stop being so afraid of being with yourself. You no longer need to escape yourself first thing in the morning, and that, believe me, is a form of health that cannot be bought or improvised. So give yourself those minutes. Breathe slowly. Be still. Look at what is happening inside before you go out and battle what is outside, not out of fragility but out of strategy, not to escape the world, but to enter it with more firmness. Because an untrained mind wakes up available to any kind of chaos, but a mind that has breathed, observed, and chosen a little order does not go out begging for stability. It goes out wearing it. 5. Eat breakfast wisely and avoid sugar spikes that steal your energy. This is where many people harm themselves with a smile. They wake up, do a few things half right, and then ruin the start of the day by putting anything sweet, fast, and convenient into their body, as if breakfast were a child's recess instead of one of the first serious biological decisions of the day. Then come the crash, the mental fog, the strange mid-morning hunger, the irritability, that silly urge to snack every 2 hours, and they still wonder why they cannot maintain steady energy, because you did not eat breakfast to live with clarity. You ate breakfast to entertain yourself for 5 minutes. What you eat in the morning matters even more when you live alone, because there are no other people's schedules, no one putting structure around you, no outside system half rescuing you from your own personal chaos. That is where your judgment shows. That is where it becomes clear whether you know how to take care of yourself, or whether you let yourself be carried away by cravings dressed up as harmless wants. Eating breakfast wisely does not mean becoming obsessive or starting to talk about nutrients as if you were a laboratory on legs. It means understanding something basic. The first thing you eat affects far more than you think, not just your energy, but your focus and even your mood. When you start with a sugar bomb, the body responds quickly, yes, but not with gratitude. With a jolt, you feel a small lift, a brief sensation of pleasure, a false sense of activation, and then the drop comes. And that drop is not only physical, it is mental too. You become less steady, more scattered, more vulnerable to impulsiveness. Your attention breaks sooner, your patience shortens, your clarity fades. But of course, because all of this seems so ordinary, most people never question it. They think living with ups and downs is normal. They think feeling drained by mid-morning is just part of being an adult. No. Many times it is simply the result of treating your body like a bucket you can throw anything into. Eating breakfast intelligently means choosing foods that sustain you, not foods that hijack you. Something that truly nourishes you, not something that sets off the day like fireworks, only to leave you in ruins afterward. Protein, fiber, Something simple, something real, something not designed to fool your tongue while emptying out your energy. You do not need to turn your kitchen into a temple or your plate into a doctoral thesis. You need common sense. You need to stop confusing what you like with what actually serves you. Because if every morning you reward your body with mediocre choices, you cannot act shocked when it gives you mediocre results in return. And here comes an uncomfortable but useful truth. Sometimes you do not eat badly out of ignorance, but out of self-neglect. Because you have gotten used to treating yourself like the last thing on your own list. Because you think that as long as your stomach is full, that is enough. Because no one is watching, so you allow yourself things you would never recommend to someone you love. That is the serious part of it. How do you feed yourself when there are no witnesses? How do you care for yourself when there is no one nearby to applaud your discipline? That is where your real relationship with yourself appears. And if that relationship is weak, it shows up even at breakfast. There is a very Stoic teaching in all of this. Epictetus insisted that freedom begins when we stop being slaves to our most immediate impulses. And yes, that applies to food too. Choosing well first thing in the morning is not only a matter of physical health, it is a practice in self-command. It is telling instant desire that it does not rule you. It is remembering that not everything pleasurable is good for you, and not everything convenient makes you stronger. A man or woman who cannot govern what goes into their mouth first thing in the morning will have a hard time governing more complex decisions when real pressure arrives. There is also something deeply practical about this. A good breakfast saves you from having to rescue yourself later. It spares you that sudden empty feeling, that lightheadedness, that unreasonable irritability, that shaky mind. It gives you a foundation. And foundations are not celebrated much because they do not make noise, but they hold everything up. People admire big decisions, dramatic changes, spectacular transformations. Fine, but life is almost always won or lost in quiet, repeated choices. Eating well at breakfast does not feel heroic. It gives you stability. And stability, even if it sells less, is worth gold. Musonius Rufus spoke very clearly about simple food as an ally of a stronger and more disciplined life. Not as punishment, but as lucidity. Eating well was not, for him, an act of bodily vanity, but of order. And that is exactly what you need in the morning. Order, not reward. Nourishment, not distraction. Clarity, not a sugar festival that makes you cheerful for 5 minutes and defeated for the rest of the morning. Because health is not always destroyed by brutal excess. Sometimes it erodes through small daily indulgences that seem harmless until they become habit. So look at your breakfast more seriously. Not with obsession, not with fear, not with hysterical rigidity, with respect. Ask yourself whether what you are eating is supporting you or sabotaging you. Ask yourself whether you are building energy or simply chasing quick gratification. And choose better, not to look proper but to feel solid. Because when your morning stops depending on artificial highs and crashes, your mind becomes steadier, your body responds better, and you stop living like a hostage to the first thing that tempts you. And that even if it seems small, changes a great deal. 6. Define your priority for the day and do it early, without negotiating with yourself. This is the habit that keeps your day from turning into a torn bag through which all your energy leaks away. Because one thing is being busy and something very different is moving forward. A lot of people live jumping from task to task, handling what is urgent, replying to other people, putting out fires, feeling productive because they never stop. But at the end of the day, there is that bitter feeling of having been in motion without ever touching what truly mattered. That is not discipline. That is distraction with a schedule. Defining your priority for the day means deciding with a cool head what deserves your best energy before the noise, the laziness, or life itself tears your will out of your hands. And doing it early is essential because the first hours carry a strength that does not come back. Later on, you are already contaminated by interruptions, small decisions, accumulated fatigue, messages, opinions, and excuses that sound more reasonable the more time you give them. That is why so many people postpone what matters and end up giving their best version to lesser nonsense. Then they say there was not enough time in the day. Sometimes there was enough time. What they lacked was the courage to face first what mattered most. Your priority is not always the biggest task. It is not even the most visible one. It is the one that, if you get it done, either brings order to the rest or keeps the day from sliding into the swamp of self-deception. It might be an uncomfortable phone call, an important piece of work, an hour of serious study, a pending decision, or some task you have been kicking down the road for weeks, as if ignoring it would make it disappear. And this is where the old human vice appears. Negotiating with yourself. I will do it later. First, I will make progress on this easier thing. I just need to check one quick thing. I will do it when I feel more like it. Yes, of course. And that is how the hours go by while your priority sits there aging, staring at you with the look of someone who already knows you. Not negotiating with yourself is a hard but liberating form of respect. Because every time you strike a deal with your weakest side, you teach yourself not to believe your own word. And a person who does not believe their own word becomes internally fragmented. They start promising a lot and executing very little. They start living with a quiet erosion of self-respect. Not because they do not love themselves, but because they keep watching themselves fail too often. And that is heavy, heavier than the work itself, heavier than the momentary effort. What truly wears you out is not so much doing what is difficult. What truly wears you out is carrying the daily evidence that you keep avoiding yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that should be carved into the forehead of anyone who postpones life with elegance. He said, "You must not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. While you live, while it is still in your power, be good." There is all the healthy urgency you need. Not to panic, but to stop behaving as if there will always be another identical morning waiting for you. There will not. Every day has a window. If you do not do early what matters most, you risk letting the rest of the day turn into a wall of distractions with excellent alibis. There is also something immensely valuable that comes from doing your priority early. It clears the soul. There is a strange, solid peace in knowing that you already faced what mattered before the day became tangled. Even if unexpected things come up later, even if the rest does not go perfectly, you are no longer living from an inner debt. You are no longer carrying that background murmur that says, you still have not done what you were supposed to do. Do you notice how everything changes when that weight disappears? You breathe differently. Your relationship with time changes. You are no longer running out of guilt. You move with more steadiness because what mattered most already received your respect. And here comes the inevitable sarcasm. A lot of people want a meaningful life with tiny, shaky habits. They want solid results while spending the whole morning arranging irrelevant details with touching seriousness. They answer messages with military speed, organize folders, clean a corner, check one thing, fix another, while the real priority keeps waiting at the door like an awkward relative no one wants to let in. Then night comes and the sad speech appears. I just did not have time today. No, there was time. What was missing was hierarchy. What was missing was the character to put first what needed to come first. Seneca understood this trap well, and kept repeating that when we do not know which port we are sailing toward, no wind is favorable. Defining your priority is exactly that, choosing your port. Without it, any message diverts you, any request captures you, any discomfort convinces you to change course. With it, you already have a north, and a day with a north, even if imperfect, usually ends better than a day full of scattered movement. Because inner order does not consist in doing a lot. It consists in not betraying yourself in what matters most. So before the world starts making demands on you, decide what comes first. Write it down if you need to. Look it in the face. And do it early, before the negotiations begin with that part of you that always wants immediate relief. Do not listen to it so much. You already know how that conversation ends. Do what matters first and let the rest revolve around that victory. Because a person who handles the essential early does not just move forward more. They live with more dignity. And once you get a taste of that dignity, it becomes harder and harder to go back to wasting your morning on things that never deserved your best energy. 7. Leave your home in calm order every morning and create an environment that takes care of you. This last habit seems small until you understand that it is not small at all, because the home you live in does not just hold you, it also shapes you. The space you leave behind when you walk out in the morning becomes the place you will return to in the afternoon or at night, and that return can welcome you like a refuge or punish you like a sentence. Many people do not see it that way. They rush out, leave cups, clothes, objects out of place, a stirred-up atmosphere, and then come back exhausted to a setting that, instead of soothing them, reminds them from the doorway that not even their own home is on their side. Leaving the house in calm order does not mean making it perfect or behaving like some obsessive neat freak. It means not sabotaging your own future peace. It means understanding that your environment also teaches you, also wears you down, also supports you or breaks you. A kitchen that looks like a minor battlefield, an unventilated bed, crowded surfaces, visual clutter everywhere, objects that seem to have multiplied overnight. All of that weighs on you. Not always dramatically, but it weighs on you. And when you live alone, it weighs even more, because there are no shared excuses anymore. What surrounds you speaks of how you treat yourself when no one is watching. There is an intimate relationship between outer calm and inner calm, not because one magically solves the other, but because they feed each other. A home that is somewhat ordered, breathable, and simple helps you think better, lower your tension, and feel that there is at least one place where you do not have to fight unnecessary stimuli. A neglected space, on the other hand, drags you down without asking permission. It steals energy from you in petty details, irritates you, scatters you, makes you live with a quiet sense of overload that many people have already normalized. Do you really want to go out and fight the world only to come back to a place that feels like another ambush? Is the chaos outside not enough that you also need to manufacture it inside? Leaving your home in calm order can be something as simple as airing it out a bit, tidying the basics, clearing a surface, leaving the kitchen decent, putting away what you know your later self will be grateful for. That tired version of you, that overloaded version of you, that version who will not want to look at accumulated disorder because the day will have already been enough. There is a very concrete form of self-love in making life a little easier for your future self. And it is curious because many people say they want peace, yet they design environments that seem to have been built by an enemy with a sense of irony. The Stoic way of life enters here too, though some people may be disappointed that it does not come wrapped in grand phrases. The Stoics valued simplicity, measure, and the clearing away of what is unnecessary. Not because they were interior decorators of the soul, but because they understood that the mind grows stronger in an environment that does not attack it for no reason. Marcus Aurelius often spoke of returning to oneself, of gathering inward, of finding an inner place where one can remain steady. Fine, it helps a great deal if your outer place does not look like a fairground after a storm. Not everything is symbolic, of course, but a great deal of it is. And there is something else important. Your home is the first witness to your everyday dignity. Not the street, not social media, not visitors, your home. That is where it becomes clear whether you are someone who keeps yourself good company or someone who abandons yourself with decent manners. Because a person can dress well, speak beautifully, have plans, even seem very centered, and still live in a space that screams exhaustion, neglect, or indifference. That always ends up costing something. A repeated environment becomes a climate. The climate becomes a mood, and mood ends up influencing your decisions. Look at what an elegant chain that is, and how easy it is to ignore until you are already trapped inside it. Musonius Rufus defended a simple and well-directed life, one in which things served virtue, and not the other way around. Luxury was not necessary. Order of purpose was. That fits perfectly here. Your home does not need to impress. It needs to help you. It needs to be functional, breathable, simple, kind to your energy. It needs to look like the home of someone who does not idolize themselves, but does not despise themselves either. And that difference shows a great deal. A simply cared for space has something noble about it. It does not show off, it does not shout, but it holds you up. And beyond that, when you leave your home in calm order in the morning, you carry a different feeling with you. You leave less fragmented. You leave wearing a little coherence. You have drunk water, moved your body, breathed, eaten with good judgment, defined your priority, and now you leave behind an environment orderly enough not to come chasing you later. That is how you close the first part of the day well. That is how you stop leaving unnecessary loose ends behind. That is living with more intelligence and less emotional improvisation. And yes, it seems humble. That is exactly why it is so valuable. The humble things, repeated enough times, end up building very strong structures. So do not underestimate this last point. Your home can be a quiet ally or a daily burden. Decide which one it is going to be. Leave it in calm order every morning, not out of obsession, not for appearances, not out of rigidity. Do it out of respect for your mind, your energy, and the human being, who will return later needing a place to take off the armor. Because in the end, true wealth is not in having a lot, but in inhabiting well what you have. And a calm home, when you live alone and want to live better, is not some household detail. It is a serious form of health. In the end, living alone can sink you or sharpen you. It all depends on how you use your mornings. If you get up without order, without water, without light, without movement, without silence, without the judgment to feed yourself well, without a priority, and without caring for the space you live in, then you are not living in freedom. You are living adrift with your own keys. But when you put structure into those first hours, something really changes. Your body responds better. Your mind stops running like a frightened animal, and your home stops being a reflection of neglect and becomes a firm foundation. Health does not begin with grand decisions. It begins with how you open the day when no one is forcing you to do it well. Now it is your turn to stop admiring habits from a distance and start living them. Not all perfectly, not all at once, not with the anxiety of turning into a different person before Tuesday. Start tomorrow. Get up at the time you said you would. Drink water, get some light, move, breathe. Eat with your head on straight. Do what matters early. Leave your home at peace, and then repeat it until your life stops feeling improvised. Because what wears you down most is usually not the difficulty of the road, but the habit of betraying yourself in the basics. And if you correct that, you correct far more than a morning. You correct the relationship you have with yourself. If this video spoke plainly to you, subscribe to the channel and join us on this path. And in the comments, write this phrase: "My health is discipline too." I want to hear from you and know what country or what corner of the world you are watching this video from, because when people who want to live with more dignity find each other in the same place, they stop feeling alone and start building something stronger than a simple audience. They begin to form a community hungry for truth. Gabriel here. This is the Stoic Garden. On screen, I'm going to leave you 2 recommended videos so you can keep going deeper, keep clearing your mind, and keep strengthening that part of you that is already tired of living by inertia. Choose one and keep going now, because peace, health, and self-respect do not arrive by accident. They are cultivated.